A long ass time ago, I moved from my home country of England to Japan, and ever since I've been living in the city of Nagoya. Within Nagoya, there's an area of town called Osukanen. It's got a big temple that's always swarmed with pigeons, and more interestingly to me, a street called Akamondori. Akamondori is where the biggest concentration of retro game stores are at. You know, there's a Super Potato here, which is the big famous chain that I think any retro collector has at least heard of, alongside some other smaller places that I honestly think are better, but a bit less gaijin friendly if you're a non-Japanese speaking tourist. It's not the only place in Nagoya to get retro games, but if you're on the hunt for something, then you start here. So I'm walking around Osu with my friend one day, and I think to myself, damn, I own basically every NES Mega Man game except for Mega Man 1. So let me drop by the stores and see if I can complete the set. Holy fucking shit, absolutely goddamn not. I hope that maybe that was just a jumped up price because it was a complete in-box copy in a retro game shop in an area with high tourist traffic, but no, even online boxed copies go for about the same, and loose copies are anywhere between 8,000 to 10,000 yen, and I'm sorry, I'm just not paying that. For comparison, the recently released, at time of writing, Expedition 33 costs about the same amount as a loose cart, and if I have to pick between a modern RPG that reminds me of the Xbox 360 classic Lost Odyssey with rave reviews, or a janky platformer from 1987, then I know where my game budget's going. What I'm not implying with my gripes about retro game prices though is that Mega Man should be in any way ignored. Mega Man 1 is fucking great. It's short, it's janky, but it's also amazingly fun, and it's a deeply impactful bit of gaming history that I think everyone should try at least once. Luckily, the game has been made available for modern audiences via the Legacy Collection, so tell those resellers to fuck off and just pick that up instead. Even then, if you feel iffy about paying £12 for an NES game, you can always don your tricorn hat and sail into the sea of emulation too. I'm not gonna judge you. So anyway, fucking Mega Man. Wait, hold on. Most of my viewers are American. Let me go get the right box art here. What in the fresh fuck is even that? This box art is infamous for being completely fucking awful, and I couldn't find a name to put to the piece, but according to some things I found online, it was done extremely quickly by a guy who had not seen the game, and had only a vague idea of what the whole thing was even about. And you know what? I kinda like it, actually. Are we gonna shit on it because Mega Man looks like he's about to hit retirement and has a pistol from a 1950s sci-fi movie? Fuck no. The Atari 2600 was out here misrepresenting their games on their boxes for years before Mega Man was a thing. Cut the guy some slack. I think it's a solid case for one of those things that's so bad that it becomes funny. Like, I look at the American box art for a game like Eco, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck, kill it with fire. But this one just makes me do a sensible chuckle and gives me the fuzzies. It's adorable. Hell, the status of this thing is so legendary in the modern day that they did it again for Mega Man 9, but on purpose as a homage to this piece. That's enough fawning over the box, but since this is an old-ass game, let's take a quick look at the manual. I really miss manuals. I used to love buying a new game, cracking it open from the plastic shrink wrap, and giving it a good sniff. That fresh manual smell was amazing. The American manual is actually quite strange. It does the usual manual type stuff of explaining controls and what items do in the game, but the way it describes certain things is kind of weird. For example, in the playing hints part of the manual it says, each time Mega Man successfully outduels one of his 6 foes, he acquires new firepower which he will need as Mega Man enters Final Stage 7 to defeat the evil Dr. Wily. No problems there. Mega Man is famous for letting the player use the boss weaponry after you finish a stage. It's one of the big pulls of the series. But then it gets weird. Mega Man must use the newly acquired weaponry wisely, for he can use them just once when engaged in battle with Dr. Wily. I'm sorry, what? That makes it sound like the boss weapons you get vanish after a single use, but that's just untrue. You can use them as much as you like, and even if you run out, you just farm energy pickups and use it some more. Weird shit. The Japanese manual doesn't overcomplicate this stuff at all, it just says every time you beat a boss, you get their weapon. The other interesting part of the manual is the story. Both the Japanese and the English manual have basically the same premise of humanoid-like robots made for industrial use being reprogrammed by Dr. Wily and causing trouble, which Mega Man then has to go deal with. In the English manual it says that Mega Man resisted Wily's reprogramming and as a result of surviving the experience takes it upon himself to defend the universe. In the Japanese manual, Mega Man is a household robot that Dr. Light, who's a leading expert in humanoid robots, regards as a son I guess he never had, and when he hears about Wily's bullshit, he reprograms Mega Man into a combat-focused robot to go and shut down the other ones and gather their cores. The Japanese version of this story makes me laugh, because in the Western one he sounds like a badass, a survivor of a kidnapping attempt in a war for control of the world. The Japanese one has that war for control, but Mega Man is essentially a Roomba with a gun. In fact, you ever watch that old TV show Robot Wars? The Japanese manual makes it sound a bit like that, just with people bots instead of dustpans covered in knives. Also, the Western manual names the world the game is set in. It's called fucking Monsteropolis. Kind of a stupid name, but the Japanese manual doesn't name the world at all, so that's what I'm rolling with until I'm told otherwise. I got curious and looked up the manuals for Mega Man X and Mega Man 2, and references to Monsteropolis seem to have been dropped, so maybe it'll crop up again in the future. I don't know, there's a lot of Mega Man games. Finally, the last thing I want to mention with the manual is that the first page of the English booklet says that Mega Man is part of the Captain Commando Challenge series. I'd never heard of this, and Captain Commando the arcade game wouldn't come out until '91, so it was an interesting little thing to find. According to the Captain Commando Wikipedia page, the games in this series consist of 1942, Commando, without the Captain, Ghosts and Goblins, Trojan Section Z, and Gunsmoke, as well as Mega Man. Maybe one day I'll do videos on all these other games just to show that I'm up to the challenge. So you load up the game and you get this unceremonious title screen. No music, no options or settings to speak of. The only thing you can do is press start. As far as I can tell, the Japanese and Western versions of Mega Man 1 are pretty much the same thing, at least in the many playthroughs I've done of the games, but this title screen is pretty different. In the Japanese version, you can see Mega Man on the screen striking a hero pose, which I like a fair bit more than the plain-ass Western title screen, but after that we're in sync, so hit start and away you go. Unlike a lot of other games on the NES, where hitting start will drop you into the first level, in Mega Man you are presented with a boss select screen. From this screen you can select any boss you like, and you're free to play the game in any order you like. In theory. There's two things to consider here. First, not all bosses are made equally. For example, from our current lineup, Guts, Cut and Bomb Man drew the short straws when it came to their design, because these guys are quite easy to kill. Elec, Ice and Fireman, on the other hand, were the bots that the creators seem to favour and are much harder. If you think that means that you just do the 3 easy boys followed by the 3 harder boys though, you are mistaken. As mentioned in the manual, killing a boss yields their weapon, and each boss has a specific weakness to another boss's weapon. For example, Elecman, despite being challenging due to his high damage output and awkwardly shaped arena, eats shit if you throw Cutman's spinning blades in his face. The ideal way to play the game is to find which of these guys you can kill the easiest with just your default weapon, the Mega Buster, and then go through in weakness order from there, but what that route is might change depending on the player. If you aren't using a guide, then really it's just down to trying each stage and experimenting and working it out, and even with a guide you might end up doing something different anyway. I googled a Mega Man 1 boss order, and a lot of guides say to start with Bomb Man, but I think that's dog shit, and Guts or Cut makes more sense for a first choice, but see what I mean? Play the game however you like, it's cool in that way. It's impossible to fuck up a playthrough, and if you're feeling really spicy, you can tell the whole system to go fuck itself and beat the game with the Buster only. Its design totally allows for that. For the sake of this review, I recorded 2 playthroughs, one that starts with Guts and one that starts with Cut, and will mainly follow the one that goes with Cut. Why? No reason in particular, it's my review, I'll do what the fuck I want. So hit the button and get a little fanfare that introduces our bastard du jour, and it informs us of how many points he's worth. The scoring system in this game is really weird, because the point value of any given boss is randomly rolled when you select them. If you're playing for the first time and you were hoping to work out a boss order based on point value, then you can go fuck yourself. I could go into detail about the scoring system as it comes into play, but does anyone really give a fuck? I mean, is anyone out here playing Mega Man 1 for score? No, absolutely not. And Capcom agree with me too, because after Mega Man 1 they told that score system to fuck off and never talk to them or their sons ever again, because it isn't present in any of the games after this one. If you play a lot of shmups, you may know that hitting certain score thresholds gives you extra lives, so even people who don't care at least have some reason to engage with it, but here? No, nothing, it's actually useless. So you drop in a Cutman stage, and the first thing you'll notice is the fucking music. It's so good in this stage. It's good in all the other stages too, and it's good in all the other games as well. There have been bad Mega Man games over the years, but if there's one thing this series has always had, it's an absolutely banging set of soundtracks. So you run to the right and shoot. It's a fucking NES side-scrolling action game, we're not getting much more complicated than that. And as you kill some of the enemies, you might notice that they occasionally drop items. Yellow thingies restore your health, blue thingies restore your weapon energy, and the little balls give score that can be completely ignored. The level is nice because the first hurdle is this upward climb as wall-mounted guns shoot at you. The guns are weak and you can't die by falling in this section, so the worst thing you can really suffer as you climb upward is mild irritation if you get hit. Gotta wonder if anyone actually died to these guns. This stage is so straightforward that there isn't that much to say about it. After climbing up, going over, and then going down the other side though, we do get our first taste of the famous Mega Man 1 jank. If you play literally any of the other NES Mega Man games before this one, you'll notice that it feels just a bit different to play. It's also a bit buggier than every other entry on the system. For example, right here in Cutman, as you're going down these ladders, you can skip these screens entirely just by jumping off screen where the ladder on the other side would be, and then you're able to wrap around and grab it. Nothing game-breaking, but Mega Man 1 certainly suffers from a little bit of teething trouble with it being the first game. Capcom sorted themselves out pretty quickly, and this one is still perfectly cool and playable, but it's noticeably being held together with duct tape and chewing gum. Right before you hit the boss, you'll see your first, if following the order of this video, pogo robot that the manual calls a Big Eye. Most enemies in Mega Man will only do a few points of damage. You can make a lot of mistakes and play quite sloppily and still make it through, which is cool, but you will have to focus up when these guys are around. If they touch you, they will just chomp a massive chunk of your life bar. Considering this guy is placed right before the boss door, if you were doing well and then got here with high HP, but then you brush shoulders with this fucker, you're going to be in for a hard time anyway. They're also super resistant to the buster and take a whole bunch of hits to kill. The best way to deal with them is to either eat the hit if you're confident with the boss and tell them to piss off, or run under them when they do a big jump. There's no pattern as far as I know, they either do a small hop or a massive leap at random, so you just have to watch carefully and be ready. Enter the boss room and find that Cutman is a complete pushover. His projectile is slow moving, and once you get used to his pattern of him running up to you and jumping over, then you can just kick back and buster him down. If you came in here with Gutsman's power that allows you to fondle the cubes in the left corner, he dies in 2 hits, but even with the buster it does 3 damage per shot and you'll have him down in no time. Grab your first robot core and get Cutman's spinning blades for yourself, and then move on to the next stage. Now, if you were paying attention to the earlier part of this review, you may remember that I said that Elecman eats shit when you throw spinning blades at him, so pick Elecman, right? Wrong! Next, for reasons to be revealed later, we're going to Gutsman. Gutsman stage, however, sucks massive ass and I hate it. It starts out with these moving platforms that not only have the most irritating sound effect known to man, it will also fall out from underneath you at the gaps in the rail, and the falling physics are kind of weird, so you have to jump slightly earlier than you think you do, because otherwise the game just puts 10,000 Gs of downward force onto Mega Man, and you die instantly. Once you get past that, you have a series of annoying pickaxe throwing assholes, which aren't that hard to deal with, but they're fucking with you over a death pit, so even a small mistake can potentially cost you a life. Then after that's done, you have to fall down this section, but if you pick the pit on the far right to descend, then haha fuck you, die on some spikes. I did an experiment where I fell down the right hand side and held the D-pad to maybe avoid the spikes, but no, you're just fucked. Then after that bullshit, there's another Big Eye waiting for you at the bottom before the boss door to chomp another chunk of your health bar away. I mean, Jesus Christ, just absolutely fuck this level. Gutsman is sort of an annoying boss too, because he likes to jump and stun you with his ground shake. I'm sure you're supposed to be able to jump and avoid the stun, but I can never not get stunned. Just hammer the fire button and get him dead, fuck this stage. He's weak to Bomb Man's power, so if you really don't want to deal with this shit, go do him first and then come here. There's even a super easy way to deal with him with the power, but I'll cover that later. The guts power that you get is actually kinda trash, as it only allows you to pick up certain blocks in the level and chuck them. It's why every boss area has 2 annoying blocks of bullshit taking up space, instead of just being a nice flat plane like they are in most other games. It does, however, have one extremely important use in Elecman stage, so that's where we're going next. Elecman stage is also quite challenging, but not in the bullshit way that Gutsman stage is. It's mostly a climb up a big ass tower, and you get some degree of leeway because falling in most of its areas doesn't result in an instant death. The most annoying part of the stage is probably right here at the start, where you gotta deftly jump up these 3 platforms while these fucking slidey idiots are knocking you around. These slidey fuckers are called spines in English, but in Japanese they're called gyaboru, which is sort of funny, because gabyo is the word for thumbtack. I guess these things are supposed to be like futuristic caltrops or whatever. You can actually kill them with cut if they're really annoying you. Near the top of the first section, you get your first taste of appearing blocks. The absolute bane of any Mega Man player's existence. Fucking up these ones won't kill you, but they will send you back down, and climbing back up might make a vein pop in your head if the game's difficulty is already stressing you out. Make sure that you take the ladder on the right hand side as well. It's doing that bullshit Gutsman thing again of giving you 2 choices of which way to go, but then having one choice just be absolute dog shit. You can make the jump from the left path, but it's significantly harder than the casual shimmy across a couple of easy blocks on the right. Don't fall in the next screen because that is a death pit, and then go up another tower. It's nice and easy. Dying to a fall on the tower is not possible, although if you fuck up too much you might just run out of HP. Once you get most of the way up the tower, you'll come across the magnet beam, an insanely useful bit of kit that you need to finish the game, but will also come in handy in other areas too. Equip Guts and Kool-Aid Man through the cubes to get your prize. Now, if you weren't paying attention to what I was saying earlier and you came here without Guts, then don't worry, you aren't fucked. One option is to perform the following magic trick. Cool, huh? Gotta be careful though, because if you fuck up the grab and get stuck in there, you have to reset the entire game. No pressure. I'll link a speedrunning info page in the description so you can learn to do it by yourself. If that seems like a lot for you, just move on and come back later with Guts when you get it. Thankfully, stages can be replayed, so there's no way for you to softlock yourself at the end of the game, where you'll be presented with a room that needs Magnet Beam to get through it. It's sort of bullshit when you think about it, because it being placed like this makes it look like it's optional, but it's absolutely required, and the only way to know that is to go halfway through an endgame level and get stuck and be required to go back. The rest of the stage is fairly easy. There's a bullshit Thunderbolt section right before the boss, but it's more of just a shitty way to slow you down rather than posing any real threat. Equip Cut and take down Electman in 3 hits. If you took a beating on the way, you might get killed before you can slice him up like it's 1 AM in central London, but as long as you don't game over, you'll start right at the boss door. And even if you do game over though, you may be glad to know that unlike a lot of games in the NES library, this one doesn't make you go all the way back to title screen. You have to restart the stage you were currently playing, or you can go pick another, but the bosses stay dead. No annoying game over, go back to the start bullshit that a lot of old games have. As long as that system stays on and you don't slip on a banana peel and land on the reset button, your progress is safe. You do lose all your points when this happens, but as previously discussed, who gives a fuck about that? If we're sticking to weakness order, then next on the chopping block is Iceman, whose level is either really irritating or really easy depending on the tools you have available. If you bit the lemon and went in raw, then this level sucks. More appearing blocks that aren't really deadly, but no one wants to deal with these fucking things, come on man. And also a long section with bullet shooting platforms where getting killed by knockback is extremely easy to do. Actually, hold on, quick aside, the appearing blocks I've mentioned I've always called Yoku blocks, and I've seen people online also calling them Yoku blocks, but at the time of writing this script, I actually have no idea why people call them that. I googled it and couldn't get an answer apart from one guy putting an idea forward that Yoku in Japanese means well, as in Yoku dekimashita, for example, which means good job. I guess the idea being that you have to navigate them well to get through? I don't know, his idea seems like complete dog shit. I even googled it in Japanese and only found people calling them boon blocks, which at least makes sense because it's onomatopoeia for the sound they make as they piss you off. If someone can tell me why they're called Yoku blocks, please leave a comment. Anyway, if you have the magnet beam in this level, you can just tell all those annoying sections to fuck off, and the final obstacle is a single big eye in a large empty room, so even he's fairly easy to get around. Iceman is a simple boss as he just shoots ice at you from one end of the room, but this is a good chance for me to talk about the best trick in the game that literally anyone can perform. The pause trick. It's easy. Fire an elect shot at Iceman, and as it connects, start mashing the pause button. Not the start button, which brings up the weapon menu, the actual pause button, which in this game, and this game only, are 2 separate things. When you unpause, the hitbox for the elect shot will become active again and do another tick of damage, and using this method you can kill Iceman before any of his ice shots even reach you. It can also be done with other weapons such as the ice shot itself and even Bomb Man's bomb blast to make quick work of Gutsman, but the timings when doing it with the other weapons are a bit tighter. The elect shot on the other hand is fucking huge, like you could park a monster truck in its hitbox, so anything that's weak to it can be easily mashed to death with your pause button. Some might say it's cheap, maybe you won't want to use it if you're trying to play as legit as possible, but I say it's fair game. If Capcom didn't want me to cheese their bosses, then maybe they shouldn't have made the fucking pause button reactivate my already used shots. Iceman goes down in a couple of hits even if you don't use this trick, so give him the shocker and move on. Next up is Fireman, and he's weak to ice, but isn't that weird? Shouldn't it be the other way around? Like, I get that you can extinguish some fires with water, and that heat is 1/3 of the fire triangle, but also, fire is really good at melting ice. I imagine that if I had a robot coming at me that was on fire, and I threw an ice tray at him, I'd be the one losing that encounter, not him. But whatever, it's video games, off we go. Thankfully, this level goes back to being a bit more normal, with no appearing blocks to give you a migraine, although it does have its fair share of death pits and fireballs shooting up from the ground to give you a mild headache instead. A little ways into the stage and you get this fairly innocent looking room that's simple to navigate if you're playing normally, but if you have a case of the zoomies, there's a fun little trick you can do here. Remember how I said those moving platforms at the start of Gutsman's stage will put 10,000 Gs of force on you if you let them drop out from under you? Well, that also applies to standing on the magnet beam as it wears out. Usually it's not something worth noticing, but in this room, if you stand over the gap on the magnet beam and then let it vanish... In fairness, the bit of the level that you skip by doing this is short and easy, but it's still fun to do. The rest of the level is pretty straightforward, and if you have the weapon energy for it, you can trivialize most of the pits with the magnet beam. There is this one weird room with fire coming down these chutes, and I'm sure it's possible to get through these things with good timing, but the timing looks so tight and irritating that I have, in literally every playthrough I've done of this game, just used Magnet Beam to get over it. Fireman is a fairly simple boss, although he can catch you off guard because his easily dodged wave attacks leave an easy to collide with wisp of flame behind, but even if you suck at dodging, you should be able to take him down with the ice shot. If you really don't want to deal with this bullshit, then the pause trick can be used here, but the ice shot has a smaller sprite than the elect shot, so the timing on the pause-unpause is a fair bit harder. Finally, we have Bomb Man, and it feels weird to leave this one until last because it's probably the easiest one. Like I said before, a lot of guys suggest starting with this guy, and the easiness of his stage is probably one of the reasons. There's not a lot to say about it, but this stage does give me a good chance to talk about the spikes in this game. In pretty much every other Mega Man game, if you get hit by an enemy, you can land on spikes and be okay during the recovery frames. I've used this trick to save some time during my speedruns in the past. Here's an example. In this game though, absolutely fucking not. This game does not give a shit about your iframes. If you land on spikes, you are just fucking dead. It never really becomes a huge issue because this game doesn't actually have that many spike pits, but there's one big line of spikes near the end of the stage that might give you a nasty surprise if you're not careful. Bomb Man is also a simple boss since you can just avoid his bombs by just jumping, and he dies very fast to the fire shot we just got, so beat his ass and claim your final power. With all the robots now occupying the scrap heap, we have access to Dr. Wily. Dr. Wily is 4 stages long, but even if you game over, you only return to the start of the current stage you were on. So even though the challenge ramps up a bit, the game is still quite kind. If you do game over and then return to the boss select screen, you will have to return to Wily 1, but why would you even do that? There's no turning back now, so hit that button and go kick his ass. Right away you can tell that Wily isn't fucking around because the level kicks off with a gauntlet of big eyes. Use your ice shot to freeze them in place and then go under them. Next you've got these super irritating jumps over fire pillars. If you're having trouble doing the jumps, you can use the ice shot to freeze the pillars in place, which still requires some timing but is probably easier than trying to time those jumps. Some easy screens come after, but then you hit a long stretch of spikes with those annoying platforms from Iceman's stage. Probably quite challenging if you try to use those platforms, but thankfully we can just magnet beam across. If you grit your teeth and use the platforms, then you're in for a rude surprise because the next screen requires the magnet beam to get past. It's not difficult, but if you were being stubborn and you didn't pick it up for some reason, it's time to game over yourself and return to Electman to go pick that thing up. Once you best the tricks and traps of Wily 1, you will be faced with the dreaded Yellow Devil. This guy sucks. The boss itself isn't so bad on paper. His attack pattern involves him throwing parts of himself at you in a set pattern that you can learn quite easily, and then once he's fully formed he pelts an easy to dodge bullet at you. The problem is that you cannot damage him until he exposes his eye, and you basically get no time to drop a load into him before he starts his bullshit all over again. The fight takes so long that you'll end up dying by making silly mistakes as you glaze over. A real war of attrition with this guy. Thankfully, he's weak to the elect shot, so I think you're well within your rights to tell this guy to go fuck himself and pause cheese him to death. This guy comes back in other Mega Man games in various forms too, and every time he turns up I want to rip my own face off. At least this guy can be cheesed. The Mega Man 3 one is the one that can truly go and fuck itself, but that's a rant for another video. With the most irritating boss in the game reduced to a puddle of piss on the floor, we can relax a little with the next few stages. Wily 2 is simple, so there's not much to say about it. You can die if you fall, but the stage is so short and the death pits only last for 2 screens, so even if you make a mistake here, it's not the end of the world. In this stage you'll have to refight Cutman and Electman. If you're familiar with the later games in the series, you'll know that refights with the bosses is a series standard, but this is one of the few games that you have to do it as part of the stage, instead of it being its own thing with a series of teleporters. The Cutman refight feels a little bullshit because he's weak to the Guts arm and the refight arena doesn't give you any blocks to throw at him, but he's such an easy boss that it's more of a mild annoyance than anything else. Make your way down the turret infested yet fairly easy tower and you'll come up against yourself. Not really though. Wily clearly bought this Mega Man clone from Wish.com or Temu because he's a pushover. He copies whatever weapon you use and he might beat your ass if you guard him with Elect Shot or the Mega Buster, but equip the Fire Shot and he'll give you no problems. You can fire and jump and the clone will happily just walk into the spinning shield bit of the power and get stuck in a loop, so just stay calm and melt him. Wily 3 is a nice breather in all of this with no refights and a stage that takes about 5 nanoseconds to beat even if you aren't a speedrunner. There's a fun trick you can do here with the magnet beam that allows you to zip into the boss room, but it requires a little finagling, and while it looks cool, you might want to keep the magnet beam energy. The boss is a bunch of bubbles, and if that sounds stupid, then you may be happy to know that Capcom also probably thought that this boss sucks, and therefore made it the easiest thing to kill in the game. It's weak to guts and you get 4 blocks, but there's 7 droids that you'll have to take down. The droids get progressively faster as you bring down the life bar, so the logical thing to do is to Mega Buster the slow ones and then guts the last 4. If you do it the other way around, you might take a death, but once he trips you up that first time, he'll never trip you up again. Boring ass boss, onto the final level. Wily 4 is a pretty easy stage, with the most challenging part being the very first screen, since if you get clipped by an enemy on the ladder you are absolutely dead. However, dying on the first screen in a game with infinite continues is no more than a mild irritant, so no need to worry about that. Right before the final stretch you'll see this power up on a platform that exists only in this part of the game. It's called the Yashi-Ichi, and if it looks a bit out of place compared to the other power-ups you find, it's because it kind of is. This thing turned up in Capcom's very first video game called Vulgus in the arcade. And yes, I know about Fever Chance, but that's not a fucking video game, is it? So shut up. And in that game, it's not even a power-up, it's an enemy. So what does this little guy do in Mega Man? Let me check my manual. Well, the Japanese one says just a question mark, but let me see what the Western one has. 100,000 points. Well, it's kind of pointless, but it's the only place to grab it, so for fun, let's just pick it up. No, it doesn't give you 100,000 points. The manual was fucking lying to me. What it actually does is completely refill your health and weapon energy. It's the kind of lie I'm not mad about because 100,000 points is crap and pointless and energy refills are good. The truth is better than the lie. What sort of weirds me out about this whole thing though is that I found pages for the Yashichi on the Mega Man wiki and the Mega Man fandom wiki pages, and both of them say it grants you points. Not a hugely important thing to get wrong, but kind of weird that the wiki websites, supposedly run by superfans, have this little crumb of misinformation within their pages. Anyway, enough about this fucking pinwheel, it's time for more refights. These are easy since you've already done it once, with only Gutsman potentially giving some issues since the bomb weapon just kinda sucks and is hard to use. It even sucks if you're trying to use the pause trick because the timing on it is so tight, but getting through without taking too much damage isn't that difficult. If you are using the pause glitch, then most of these refights can be done without even leaving the teleporter. Refill a weapon of your choice, probably a Lek if you're new, and head into the final battle. Wily appears in this big intimidating robot, but don't worry, he's actually really fucking easy. You can melt both of his forms extremely quickly with Fire Shot, and if that's too easy for you, then his attack patterns are simple and you can dodge and weave while shoving Mega Buster in his face. If you are low on HP and you don't feel like taking a death, equip the Elect Shot and pause him down. There's also a weird bug here where if you get hit after Wily goes down, the background just sort of fucks out and the game locks up. If this happens, then don't fret, you still won in my book. And with that extremely easy final boss, Dr. Wily is no more, and you get a nice little credit sequence. Unfortunately, this is that weird time of gaming where credits were done in nicknames rather than just actual names, so if you're hoping to maybe go out and experience some other titles from these people, a Google search will be required. I did a little clicking around and looked up the list of works of the composer Manami Matsumae, aka Chan Chakurin. What? Anyway, she worked on Shovel Knight because of course she fucking did. That game has an absolute banger soundtrack and is extremely close in style to Mega Man, but the thing that made my eyes pop out of my head was the work that she did on Jade-Cocoon 2 for the PS2 and Another Bible on the Game Boy. Jade-Cocoon 2 is kind of mediocre, but it has a nice soundtrack, and Another Bible is an obscure Game Boy game in the Megami Tensei series, which I'm an absolute slut for, and I had no idea that she worked on it, so cool stuff. So despite being a little janky in places and Gutsman being one of the most irritating stages in side-scrolling platformer history, this game is fucking great. It also acted as the seed that would sprout into a fucking incredible series with just banger game after banger game after banger game. Overall, I give Mega Man on the NES a strong 8 out of 10. If you thought that was the end of the review though, you'd be completely fucking wrong. There are a fair few different ports of Mega Man 1, so I'd like to take a little bit of time to cover a few of them. The one I want to start with is the one that's most easily accessible for you, the version that you could, in theory, right now go and play right away, and that's the one on Steam. I don't own it because I have Mega Man 1 on other things, but a quick Google seems to indicate that it's not particularly different, even the pause trick seems to work. Another similar version that's available if you want something a bit more retro, there's the Mega Man Anniversary Collection for the PS2 and GameCube. I've only played the PS2 version and it's not different in any huge ways. The audio's a bit fucked and the pause trick is a bit harder to do, but if you wanted to have all your Mega Men in one place, this version contains the first 8 games, so it's a good place to go. So Mega Man is famously a series that has been on Nintendo systems. The majority of the classics on NES and Super Nintendo, X dashed on the scene on the Super Nintendo, and Zero was a Game Boy Advance outing alongside Battle Network. PlayStation has also enjoyed a decent amount of Mega Man, with X4 to 8 being on their systems, but the one company that's generally not associated with the Mega Lad is Sega. There's a few ports here and there of a couple of games, mainly on the Sega Saturn, but there's this one little curio that caught my eye for this review, and that was Mega Man The Wily Wars on the Sega Mega Drive. Yeah, fucking Mega Drive Mega Man. Weird, right? Released in 1994 in Japan and in the following year everywhere else, The Wily Wars was sort of a collection of remakes of Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. Sort of like how Super Mario All-Stars has facelifted versions of the NES Mario games, it's like that but for Mega Man, and on a completely different system. Hell, in the US, this game didn't even get a physical release. It was exclusive to the Sega Channel, this weird adapter that you hooked up to the internet and downloaded games on. Downloading games from stores like Steam and Epic is commonplace today, but the fact that this shit was going on in 1994 blows my mind. I don't think my family even owned a computer in 1994, let alone had access to a service that would have let me download games for it. Anyway, I took a quick peek at the manual in English. The story section this time is about a paragraph long and has something to do with Wily using a time machine to take a second crack at defeating Mega Man so he doesn't meddle in the future. Not a bad idea for a remake, to be honest. The Yashichi also seems to have a description that's actually accurate to what it does and isn't telling weird lies about it giving score or whatever. There's also a hint in the manual about using invincibility frames to get through obstacles, so it gets me wondering if they changed that for the first game. Only one way to find out, which is to fire it up and give it a go. For all intents and purposes, the Wily Wars version of Mega Man 1 is the same game, so a lot of the things I said in that part of the video apply the same way here. However, there are a few differences. First and most obviously, the game just looks really nice. Mega Man's little run cycle is adorable and the backgrounds for the levels look a lot nicer. Maybe as a result of the graphical update, the game runs at just a disgustingly slow speed. It feels like I'm underwater and all of Mega Man's joints have been lubricated in golden syrup. If you're familiar with the NES Mega Man games, then it's something you can adapt to quite quickly, but being able to adapt doesn't change the fact that overall, it just feels sort of wank to actually play. There's also been some odd adjustments to damage numbers that make fighting some of the bosses just kind of tedious. For example, in OG NES version of Mega Man, hitting Cutman with a Buster Shot does 3 damage, but in Wily Wars, it does 1. Cutman is, generally speaking, so easy to figure out that giving him 2 extra points of defense against the Buster to draw out the fight just makes things more annoying than actually presenting any kind of actual challenge. I looked up a damage chart and found the Buster actually does 2 damage to Gutsman, so you could argue, well, just use the Guts arm and kill him that way, but you still have to refight him in Wily 2 where there are no blocks to arm with, so no matter what you do, you are stuck tediously bustering him to death at some point. And yes, I know the Fire Shot does 3 damage, but you want to save that for the boss, the Bomb Man refight, and the final boss, so shut up. Also, speaking of tedious bosses, the pause trick is gone from this version. I tried it a couple of times and it's been fixed by completely disallowing pausing of the game while you have a projectile on screen. If you're worried about this making the Yellow Devil near the end of the game significantly harder, then don't be. The aforementioned slowed down game speed means that avoiding him is easier than ever. It's more of a battle of not falling asleep while you wait for him to split and reform, rather than the frantic avoidance of his body pieces like in the original. What is kind of cool is that the manual was correct and invincibility frames on hit do actually protect you from spikes in this version. It doesn't come up very often in Mega Man 1, but touching an enemy at the start of Wily 4 is no longer a mildly irritating guaranteed death now. Finally, I do want to point out one very funny thing that happened to me in the Fireman stage. Earlier in the video I mentioned a zip that can be done on this stage, so I was testing out the magnet beam here to see if it still worked. Well, to my surprise, Dr. Wily had this changed into a pit in this version, and instead of testing a zip, I just got melted. Well played. So yeah, this version is basically the same game, but just ever so slightly worse. It was probably cool at the time because finally the Sega boys could get some of that sweet Mega Man action, but if you had to pick between this and the original, I'd stick to the original. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 because everything that makes Mega Man 1 great is still there, but just feels slightly worse. Certainly worth a look at the very least. I'm actually kind of looking forward to reviewing Mega Man 2 and 3 to see how those versions shake out. Next up is the PlayStation 1 version of Mega Man, released as part of something called the Rockman Complete Works. This game, along with the 5 NES entries, were all ported to PS1, with a few bells and whistles added in. First up, there's the original mode, which is just the NES game. Nothing much to say here because it's just the NES game on PlayStation, but an interesting thing to note is that you can map an auto-fire button. Jump, fire, and rapid fire, which is cool if this feature is in other Complete Works games, 3 especially, but for Mega Man 1, auto-fire just isn't all that useful. I thought initially it might be cool to make the big eyes less annoying, but I didn't actually get a lot of mileage out of it. What is cool is that all the little bugs and zips that work in the NES work here. Pause trick for the hard bosses, the timing is tight and you won't get as many hits out of it, but it's there. The weird screen wrapping on ladders, intact. Zips that send you flying through walls, no problem. If for some reason you wanted to take up Mega Man 1 speedrunning, but you were absolutely intent on doing the PS1 version over the NES, then all the tech is still open to you. Well, I can't say for certain that all the tech still works. There's tricks I've not mentioned in this review because I can't do them, but all seems to be in order. If there's a PS1 version speedrunner that can clarify, then leave a comment, I guess. But out of the stuff I can do, it all works. The thing that really piqued my interest when looking into this game before playing it was that it added a hard mode. I've played this game a lot of times, so a new mode that could potentially add some challenge seemed really cool. Well, there was 2 problems. The first was that the hard mode wasn't available right out of the box. You have to fucking unlock it by beating original mode on normal once. This really fucking pisses me off, not just in this game, but in all games in general. You know how sometimes when a new Souls game comes out or some other title that gets a bit of a rep for being hard, and then all these social media weirdos crawl out of their caves to start bleating about how all games should have easy modes or ways to account for less skilled players? Well, I don't give a fuck about any of that. If you want to play a game on easy, you do that. Enjoy it your way. But the same should go the other fucking way around too. If your game has difficulty settings, but the elevated difficulties are locked behind a full game clear before I can access them, then fuck you. Let people enjoy games how they want, huh? Well, how about letting me enjoy it on hard, you time-wasting piece of shit? Just as a quick aside, the one game that did this that really pissed me off was Shin Megami Tensei 4 on the 3DS. My 3DS was one I bought in the UK, and the fucking thing is region locked, so unlike the regular DS, I just can't buy Japanese games and slam them into my system and have them work. And I barely use the fucking thing, so I don't want to go through all the effort of hacking it or whatever. So, very kindly, a friend of mine lent me his Japanese 3DS and his copy of SMT4, and I enjoyed playing it, but I was fucking pissed when I found I was unable to play the hard mode because there wasn't a clear file on the cart. I love that series. I've played it an absolute fuck ton. I'm fairly familiar with how it works and what kind of challenges it can throw, so I want to get deep in the weeds right away. Why the fuck was I required to play it on the laughably easy normal mode just to have the hard mode taunt me from the menu as I return the game and system to its rightful owner? Fuck you, Atlas. And fuck anyone else who locks their elevated difficulties. Stop doing that shit. Anyway, in this game it's not a huge issue because I can beat Mega Man in less than 40 minutes even when rusty, so I buckled down, beat that shit, and got my hard mode. I'm sorry to report, however, that the hard mode kinda sucks ass. Nothing about the game itself is any different. The stages are the same, the hazards are the same, the enemy placement is all the same. Google told me that enemies were doing more damage, but I didn't really notice. I'm not counting little ticks of my life on my bar when I get hit 90% of the time. I think examining the damage to Cutman in the Wily Wars may have been the first time I've actively paid attention to damage values. My dumb monkey brain just looks at the kind of broad change and ignores the specifics. Hit enemy, big change, do it again. Small change weapon, do it again. The big difference in the hard mode is that all the pickups seem to have been completely turned off. All the static pickups in the stages have been removed, and enemies never drop anything either. This sounds like it would be quite a bit harder, but the generous checkpointing and continue system from the original are completely unchanged. Maybe I was expecting too much, but I thought that enemies might have been shuffled around to be more annoying, or hazards might have been cycled a bit faster, but no, none of that, just no pickups. I even game overed myself in Wily 4 to see if it would kick me back to Wily 1 or make me start from scratch, but no, I couldn't get even that. Plopped at the stage start with all my energy refilled. If you aren't absolutely nutso for Mega Man like I am, maybe a no healing run seems like a decent challenge, but if you're decently skilled at the game and you are hoping for some new shit to test yourself with, this ain't it. Another interesting addition in the game is the Navi mode. This changes the style of health bar and the pause menu, as well as alerting you as to when you can hit the select button to get hints from Dr. Light. A cool feature for new players is it also includes hints from Beat, the bird bot that first appeared in Mega Man 5 to tell the player where to go. It seems pointless because who the fuck is getting lost in Mega Man 1, really? But there's one part of the Gutsman stage where Beat tells you which gap to fall down to not instantly eat shit and lose a life on the spikes below. Thank you, Beat. Your presence makes this stage like 13% less bullshit. What a legend. The hints from Dr. Light can also be a bit hit and miss. Like, when you come across the Big Eye in the Cutman stage, Dr. Light says that sometimes running away is the better strategy, and in this case he's completely right. Fuck Big Eyes. Other times he just gives bafflingly obvious advice, like in the Iceman stage where he's like, ride the enemies to get across. If you get hit by their shots, then you're gonna fall. Yeah, thanks your fuckface. I'm sure a toddler could have worked that one out just by looking at the screen. How stupid do you think the player is? Then there's a couple of instances where he just gives weirdly phrased and sort of confusing advice. The one that sticks out in my mind was in Fireman, where he says, there's a weapon you can use to pass through without taking any damage. And when I first saw that, I was like, oh shit, you can freeze these things? Like, I thought I was going to learn something new, but no, nothing worked. I think he's talking about the magnet beam, but I wouldn't exactly call that a weapon. The issue here is that he uses the word buki, which is literally weapon. I'd class the magnet beam as more of a dogu, a tool. Even when you find the magnet beam, Light himself calls it an item rather than a weapon. Fuck you, Dr. Light, you misleading old fuck. But yeah, Navi mode isn't really worth doing if you're already familiar with the game, but I had fun seeing the little text scrolls as I was gathering footage. One thing that did piss me off though is that I'd played Navi mode first on normal, thinking I'd get footage of that and then footage on hard mode after, but beating the game on Navi doesn't unlock hard. I mean, why the fuck not? You added text boxes and a bird that holds an arrow, but the core of the game is still the fucking same. Bunch of fucking bullshit. One other thing to mention about the Navi mode is that if you hold down select and then hit the start button, you can play with some of the songs remixed. Weirdly, they didn't redo all the tracks for all the stages. Electman, Cutman, and Gutsman have redone tracks, but Ice, Fire, and Bomb don't get the treatment. I couldn't be fucked to do another playthrough of this version to see if Wily stages have remixed music, so if you want to solve that mystery, then go do it yourself and leave a comment telling me the result. Returning to the menu and skipping past the options screen, we have the database, which has enemy information, artwork, and things like that. Most of it's locked from the jump and you unlock it just by playing the game naturally. Probably not overly interesting to anyone who doesn't read Japanese, and if you can read Japanese, it's mildly annoying because it seems to be written in mostly hiragana, foregoing kanji, and thus making it sort of irritating to look at. Like, at first I thought it was not using kanji because it was maybe aimed at children, like in the Mega Man entry where it says he was changed into a combat robot to put an end to Wily's ambitions, and so not using the kanji for Soshi because it's not one that the target demographic might have come across too often. But then I looked at the entry for Metul and the fucking kanji for Mieru isn't there. Either the target demographic for Mega Man 1 has been literal fresh out of the womb babies, or Capcom has a weird idea of what kanji kids may or may not know. I mean, the kanji for Yo is there, so what the fuck? And don't anyone try to suggest anything stupid like it being an issue of disk space or something. I've played Ore no Shikabane o Koete Yuke. I've plumbed the depths of how much kanji the PS1 can handle. There's something weird going on here, and I can't imagine the game or the half-remixed OST is taking up that much real estate. Enough about my language gripes though. The final mode on the list here is a boss rush. Simple and easy, does what it says on the tin. You fight a bunch of bosses while being timed, with the goal of doing it as fast as possible. The sad thing is that it's only the 6 Robot Masters. Yellow Devil, the Bubbles, Copy Mega Man, and Wily aren't included. I mean, why not? It surely couldn't have been that hard to let the player pick the first 6, and then just do the rest back to back. And that's just the big problem with this version in general. It puts forward cool ideas like hard mode, Navi mode, and boss rush, and then just executes them in the most disappointing way possible. The database, despite my nitpicks with kanji, is probably the only feature that didn't let me down, and for that reason I give this specific version a 6 out of 10. It's cool that it exists, but it's just not worth going out of your way to play unless you really want to experience literally every bit of Mega Man media, or you're doing it for points on retro achievements or something. There is one other feature I haven't touched in this review, which is the functionality with the Pocket Station. I ignored it because I don't own a Pocket Station. I have never owned a Pocket Station, and I have never met anyone in my life who has ever owned a Pocket Station. It sounds cool though. A quick glance at the wiki page makes it sound like some sort of Tamagotchi looking thing where you play minigames to earn experience and buff the stats of Mega Man or the boss characters. I found an old promo video for the complete works uploaded by Super Mega 233 where Mega Man has this comically large life bar as a result of being trained in the Pocket Station. Use this little minigame to make your life harder or easier depending on who you downloaded to the device. It's a neat idea. It also seems like you could battle them like those old Digimon toys from back in the day. I'm actually half tempted to go and find a Pocket Station to have a go at this stuff, but for the sake of this review, I'm just going to move on. Finally, we have Mega Man Powered Up, also known as Rockman in Japan. Like, is that his full name? Like Mario's name in the 1993 movie? The Superior Mario Movie, fight me outside! A PSP remake of the original game released in 2006, sporting a whole new art style and... hold on a minute. New style, challenges, construct mode, multiple playable characters. Oh my god, this game is huge. Let's start at the beginning with old style. This is, as implied by the title, the original NES Mega Man game just being done in this new engine and is therefore mostly identical. There are some things about it that are slightly different as a result of it being done in a new way. For example, shots don't fly through walls for either you or the enemy anymore, alongside other minor things such as the Gutsman boss room not having any blocks on the left side, and the little fireballs on Fireman's stage not going all the way off screen before coming back down. There is one change that really fucks me off about this version though, and that's the fight with the Yellow Devil in Wily 1. In the original versions of the game, the room was wider, and getting hit by a blob gave you a chance to get behind the barrage
and be safe until the next cycle. The old style fight in this version is using new style mechanics. So when he breaks apart, you only have this narrow zone in the middle of the stage, and he's got 2 giant hurt boxes on either side of you. It's not a huge problem, but the Yellow Devil fight was always the most boring boss fight in the game thanks to all the waiting around, and now there's this extra pressure too. Not a deal breaker for playing the original this way, obviously, but easily the most annoying change in the whole thing. Aside from that, it's basically the same Mega Man game you've known and loved since 1987, just gussied up for the PSP. I actually want to talk about the art style real quick because I think it looks pretty good. Turning the NES sprites into these little chibi models is cute, fits the game well I think. There's a bit on the Wikipedia page for the game about how the character designer Tatsuya Yoshikawa had the concept of toys in mind when doing these designs, and I can see that. These models look exactly like the kind of thing you could reproduce in plastic and shove into a gacha machine at 300 yen a pop. Weirdly though, some people seem to bounce off the game as a whole almost entirely because of the art style. I've talked to a few people about this version who are like, yeah, it seemed like a cool game, but I hated the art style so much I couldn't keep playing it, which is just a weird mindset to me. I can't understand it at all. The funniest thing I saw about this was a guy on Reddit saying he was afraid to play Powered Up because the art style was too feminine. Like, come on bro, even at my edgiest of teenage years, you couldn't keep me away from a good game for a trash reason like that. I didn't think people like that actually existed, but Powered Up seems to have proved me very wrong. The more interesting thing to talk about though, the real meat and potatoes of this version, is the new style game. Right away, frame 1, it's completely different with an opening stage. Like, I know 7 and 8 have them, but after those two they dropped them again, so this was certainly a surprise when I fired it up for the first time. Another big thing is the voice acting, it's all over the new mode.
We've got a big problem.
Every character is voiced and the bosses like to talk some shit to you before each fight starts. I don't particularly enjoy the voice acting, but I don't know if that means too much coming from me because I hate like 90% of all English voice acting for Japanese properties. If you watch a ton of anime, maybe you won't mind it. I personally just find it grating. It's less grating in Japanese, still not great, but the options menu for this game is absolutely pathetic. Volume levels and autosave settings only. No chance to change the voice language. Still though, the fact that every character is voiced at all shows a lot of effort went into the production. I could appreciate that. So you get through the extremely simple opening stage, and then you get another big surprise when the stage select comes up. That's right, 2 new fucking Robot Masters to bring the roster up to 8, just like all the other Mega Man games that came after this one. This also has the knock-on effect of causing the developers to rejig the boss weaknesses, so if you thought that your knowledge of the classic games was gonna come in handy here, think again. Destroying your sense of familiarity even further, not only do we have 2 new lads to deal with, but the existing robots have also had their stages completely reworked. I'm not going to run through each stage for this version like I did with the original, because the core idea behind each of the reworked stages is essentially the same. They're just laid out differently and are a bit longer. Like, Iceman still has appearing blocks and platforms over death pits, Elecman still has a stage centered around verticality, and Gutsman's stage is just complete unforgivable trash turned all the way up to 11. You know, just taking the ideas presented by the original and fleshing them out a little. The first boss I took down in the playthrough I recorded for this game was Cutman, and when I killed him, something interesting happened. After he went down, I got a cutscene with Dr. Light saying that he could repair him, and when this happens, you can play the entire game if you wanted to as Cutman, which is absolutely fucking wild. It's not just Cutman either, it's every Robot Master in the game, all 8 of them. Turns out that the Mega Buster in this game is non-lethal, at least to the bosses, and taking them down Buster only unlocks them for play in the main game. Each robot has their own abilities, so some characters can take their own paths through the level or grab collectibles that would otherwise be inaccessible to Mega Man. Not only that, but I got my hands on the DLC, which gives access to Roll and Proto Man. The game is also tracking how many stages you've cleared with each individual character too, so if you're a completionist that has to see all the numbers maxed out, you have a lot of content to go through here. Insane amounts of work from Capcom for a remake of a fucking NES game. It's great stuff. So after rescuing Cutman, you'd think that Elecman would be next, right? Well, wrong, it's Bombman now. I didn't bother rescuing any of the other Robot Masters after Cutman, I used their weakness and sent them straight to Robot Hell. It's in this stage that I nabbed a very easy to grab construction pack. That's right folks, this game has a fucking level editor. It's basically like Mario Maker but for Mega Man, even with the ability to download user levels and upload your own. Shame that this version has never been put on anything more modern than the PSP, because if this shit was on Steam with people sharing construction levels, I bet we'd see some really fun stuff, or some really fucked up stuff, you know, probably both. The packs contain stuff like enemies, backgrounds, tiles, and what have you, so you're still incentivized to play the main game if you want more than just the basic assets provided. Shame there's no way to put custom stuff in. I'm not going to comment on it because I've never actually used it, but if the idea of a Mega Man level editor got you excited as a concept and then gave you depression because it's locked on the now long dead PSP, I would like to draw your attention to Mega Man Maker. It's a tool for people to make their own NES-style Mega Man levels and share them. Checking it out has been on my to-do list for a long-ass time, but I have a backlog in the quad digits, so it may be an even longer, assier time before I get around to giving it a proper go. Still though, I'll put the link to the site in the description and you can go check it out and get creative. Anyway, I defused Bomb Man with my rolling cutters and moved on to Iceman. Yes, Iceman, he's not weak to elect beam anymore, you gotta blow him up. This is the stage where I want to point out one of my biggest gripes with new style Mega Man, which is they removed the goddamn magnet beam. It's just completely gone from Mega Man's arsenal of tools. Some of the levels may have become trivially easy with it, arguably, but even then, I feel like whoever made this decision should be tried in The Hague. Now I have no choice but to learn the patterns for and deal with all these stupid fucking vanishing blocks. It also means that I can't cheese my way through the Gutsman level, and honestly, I'd rather pull my own teeth out using a car door and a piece of string than deal with those idiotic conveyor belts. I mean, I got over myself and did it in the end, but I was not happy about it. I can't really imagine anyone being happy with this change other than the insane clown posse who now don't have to consider how the beam functions. Instead of changing the levels so they would be too easy with it, they should have made alternate easy routes that you can only access with that, and then a harder route where it's not overly useful, but has things like construction parts and stuff like that. I would have preferred the consideration went there, rather than recording voice lines for all the cast. Come on, Capcom. Before I move on, I just want to point out that bosses also have this stupid super move mechanic where they go invincible for a moment and then do a big attack. Not a terrible idea, keeps you on your toes the first time you go against them, but the fact that they are completely impervious to damage during the attack is sort of irritating. Like, you know how when you're playing Mega Man X2 and why a sponge pauses the fight after a certain amount of damage so he can have a little tantrum, and every time it happens you sigh loudly and throw your hands up in frustration? Like that, but for every boss in the game. This is more of a nitpick though. If you're using weaknesses, then it's not completely uncommon for you to not even see the super attack, but it's mildly annoying when it does go off. Iceman still messes up Fireman, so you could just go and do that, and once he's dead we can get our first new stage of the run, Oil Man, and oh god, the design for this fucking guy. In the original, he's got these big pink lips, and they changed it for the English versions, but with those lips and him being made of oil, it's just very easy to make the obvious associations with the racist caricatures of the past. As a non-American who's been living in Japan for a long time, I think what they were going for was to make him look like a catfish. Catfish are depicted with these big lips, and in Japanese folklore it's a big catfish that's responsible for earthquakes. Like, the catfish lives under the earth and causes it to shake when it moves. I'll drop the wiki link in the description if you're curious. In Nagoya there's even an emergency road that's marked by a catfish on the sign. It's by the castle. So maybe because earthquakes are caused by a big catfish and we also get oil from deep in the earth, then they landed on this design. But even with that extremely charitable explanation, it's a poorly thought out design for a game with a global release. They clearly understood it was going to be weird to Westerners too and changed his colour palette completely for the English version that I'm playing here, but it's impossible not to see it as just a little bit insensitive. I'm not even much of a stickler for this kind of thing, fuck the pearl clutching, but this has me pulling my collar nervously, so this one could have clearly done with a little bit of a rework. Enough of that though, his level is fairly straightforward, nothing too challenging here. In fact, if you played Mega Man 6, then you'll recognise the trick they're trying to pull with the oil slicks that are safe to walk along until they get lit on fire, where they then turn into death pits. Kinda sad he doesn't have a stage gimmick to call his own, instead just nabbing one from one of the later classic games. Oil Man himself is also incredibly easy to kill because he's one of those bosses that gets stunned by his weakness.
Also, his power fucking sucks. You drop an oil slick on the ground and then ride it like a surfboard. That by itself is awkward, but in the next stage you'll get to see why it sucks especially hard. Oil Man is a pretty underwhelming addition to the cast if I'm being brutally honest about it. Oil fucks up electricity apparently, so Elecman is the next target. Nothing much to say about this one. They did add a stupid section with hovering platforms over a death pit, but you know, nothing crazy. At least they don't shoot at you this time. The boss is where Oilman gets to really show off how much he sucks. In order to damage Elecman for weakness damage, you have to hit him while surfing, which is fine by itself, but there's two big fuck-off guts blocks on either side of the arena, so setting it up can be kinda tricky. What makes it really bad is the fact that if you hit Elecman with the projectile or he walks into a puddle, he takes 1 damage. What a fussy weapon. It's not quite top spin levels of unusable bullshit, but it's up there. In the new order, Elec Beam takes us to our second new stage, Time Man. The fandom wiki says that Dr. Light created him for use in time travel experiments, but he looks like the kind of robot that you would mass produce and sell in a department store or something. Like, you tell him to come wake you up at 6, and then at 6 he'll kick down your door and start yelling and ringing and shit, snooze button not included. If you were hoping for some interesting mechanics, maybe some braid or super hot type shit, then you're out of luck. It's just pendulums and conveyors. Not a bad stage or anything, just nothing overly positive or negative to say about it really. I just wish they had done a little more with the idea. There was one part where you have to shoot a pendulum to move it and jump on the ledge, and somehow I managed to get insta-kill crushed by it, so that's fun. Time Man himself is a complete pushover. He's supposed to shoot shit at you and slow down your movement with his super, but he also suffers from being stun-locked by the Elec Beam, so he's basically a non-threat. I mean, check it out, I went into his arena with 1 HP and beat him first try. Finally, Gutsman and his annoying conveyor lift things are back with a vengeance. I hate this fucking stage. I almost feel bad for ragging on the original one, because this version of the stage can fuck off at least 10 times hard as that one. At least Gutsman is an easy boss. I didn't rescue him because I used the time thingy, but it sucks so bad it's probably quicker just to buster him down anyway. The time slow can only be used twice and does 4 damage, which means after you use all of it, Gutsman will still have more than half of his HP left. God, the new weapons are so fucking bad. Just use the Buster and take the opportunity to unlock Guts here. Finally we're on Wily. Yellow Devil is up to his usual bullshit in Wily 1 and is weak to fire now instead of electricity. But Wily 2 is where things get a little more interesting because we're going up against the robot in the sewer and he's a fair bit more dangerous in this version. He moves in a square around the room and after a couple of cycles will do an actual real attack and not just the pathetic slow projectiles he occasionally throws in the original. Still weak to Guts Arm, but you only get 2 blocks, so I suggest saving them for the tail end of the fight because things get quite challenging when they start moving so fast. Actually took me a fair few tries to get him down. Next is the refight stage with Copy Mega Man at the end, and god damn the refights in this game are brutal. You know how in basically every other classic Mega Man game you get a life refill between refights, and you also probably have a supply of healing E-cans if you get yourself into a sticky situation? Well, they said fuck that. No heal drops and E-cans haven't been invented yet, so grit your teeth and get good, motherfucker. Thankfully, Copy Mega Man at the end is quite easy. Unlike the original, he doesn't just imitate you, instead he does his own thing, and his weakness changes depending on the power that he has currently equipped. A good change. This fight's fun. Final Wily is the most simple stage, but there's one extremely annoying Gutsman conveyor about halfway through that has one of the tightest jumps in the entire game. This thing killed me a whole bunch, and I wouldn't be surprised if this one section was responsible for PSPs going through Windows. Right up until the bitter end, Gutsman and his stupid falling elevators are giving me grief. Fuck you, Gutsman.
Final Wily is also kind of challenging too, since he's got a whole bunch of attacks you have to learn how to dodge this time, instead of just him throwing balls at you. He's doing the same thing as Copy Mega, where he's equipping boss skills, and his weakness changes depending on which one he has equipped. He's not that tough, but I died to him a whole bunch, maybe because I was really starting to feel that old Mega Man 1 fatigue after playing all those other versions at this point. That's not a knock on this game though, this fight is actually really fun, and it's super satisfying to finally get your head around all the patterns and get that one successful run at him. And that's it for the main game. You get your ending, unlock yet another character in a version of Mega Man that comes with a charge shot, and now you get to do it over and over again with all the characters on every difficulty, so you can gradually increment the little stage clear number by each of their names. Even if that doesn't appeal to you though, Powered Up still has some more tricks up its sleeve for you. You can enter the challenge mode, which has 100 custom stages to test your skills on, one for each Robot Master with 10 levels each, then a set for Mega and a set for Wily to round out the counter. You do need to have unlocked the Robot Master in the new style game in order to take on their challenges, so maybe some replaying will be required if this mode interests you. It's entirely possible just to quickly whip around the main game stages on easy mode and beat the Master's Buster only so you can try these challenges, so thankfully it's not a great deal of effort. If you have access to the DLC, there's also some extra hard stages made by Capcom that you can access through the creation mode. I hesitate to include them in this review since it's a long dead DLC, but honestly there isn't all that much to say. If you want a little more content squeezed out of your Mega Man remake, this is where the last few drops will come from. And that's it for Powered Up. Despite all my gripes during the main rundown, this is an incredible game. All the nitpicks I had previously in the review, they tend to fade into the background when you're actually playing. I might have said that this is the best way to play the original Mega Man, but I'm not so sure about that really. It's a really fun way to experience the original game, and a really cool way to re-experience it as a veteran coming from the NES, but nothing quite beats that original version. That said though, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I know that's 1 point higher than what I gave the original, which I just said was better, but the amount of content, even without the DLC, is worthy of some extra praise, and the polish on display here is certainly something to behold. If you're a purist, then stick to the original version, but if you need more Mega Man 1 in your life, then this is absolutely the place to get it. Thus concludes my journey through Mega Man 1. I laughed, I cried, I punched my desk out of frustration when playing Gutsman stage, but ultimately I had a great time. It's a shame that Mega Man seems to be a bit of a dead franchise at time of writing, with the last classic coming out in 2018, and the last release being an offline version of a mobile game called X-Dive from 2023. Maybe one day they'll revive the Blue Bomber, but until then, we just gotta enjoy the classics.